Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Veronia and today it's going to be a bit of a chit chat video because I realized that we actually reached 5,000 subscribers, which is crazy, and I hadn't even realized until some of you guys actually commented on my video saying congrats for 5,000 subscribers. So I just wanted to take the time to just really thank you guys for subscribing to my channel, commenting on my channel, liking my videos, and just all of that. It's really been absolutely amazing, and I really do hope you enjoy my content and you stick around for the next few years if I'm doing YouTube for the next few years, which hopefully I will be doing. So today what I decided is to actually do a part 2 of actually debunking some money myths that I tend to hear. Now I did this a few months ago, maybe not a few months ago, maybe a couple of months ago, I don't really remember, and I said that there was going to be a part 2 because there were other things that I wanted to talk about. So I thought, why not do this today, and let's just talk through some of the money myths that I think are currently going on at the moment. But just a quick reminder, number one, I'm not a financial advisor, so I'm not telling you what to do with your money, and then also this is just going to be based on my own personal opinion. Everyone can have different opinions. That's why, you know, we are able to have a chat about it and debate it. So just make sure that you're always doing your own research. So the first myth that I think kind of goes around is when people say that, you know, I don't need to have an emergency fund because I have a large credit card balance. Now this is really an interesting one, and I wanted to touch on this because I do feel like, you know, if you see that your credit card balance is maybe a couple of grand, and so if anything was to happen, like let's say you lost your job or maybe the boiler breaks down, then you could just put it on your credit card and then you can just basically pay that back. Now I specifically wanted to touch on this because I do see, you know, some gurus also talking about this as well. And in terms of my opinion, number one, you need to take into consideration the actual credit card company in terms of the terms that they're giving, but also the interest rate as well, because at the end of the day you are probably going to need to pay that money back in some way. So you really need to understand, based on the amount that you have plus the term, like how long you can actually pay back before the interest starts kicking in, that could impact how much you're going to end up paying back over time, particularly, you know, if you need to be paying back the balance within the couple of months, for example. Now the other reason why I'm saying that you specifically need to be looking at your attitude to risk as well is because if there was something to happen, so let's say for example the roof collapsed and I needed to pay £2,000 or dollars and I didn't have an emergency fund, if I was then to go and use my credit card to pay for that $2,000, would I be comfortable knowing that I'm going to have to pay back that credit card relatively quickly? Otherwise they're going to start charging interest on it. So even if it's maybe a month or maybe a couple of months, would I be that comfortable knowing that I could potentially make that money back within the next month or within the next couple of months so that I can basically pay back that credit card, meaning that I wouldn't have to pay the interest? So that's really why I do think like people need to be careful when they're saying, you know, you can use your credit card as your emergency fund, because if you do not have the means to pay it back, and let's say for example in your terms you need to have paid back the money within the next month, otherwise you'll get charged interest, you really need to be taking that into consideration. And I don't think people are necessarily thinking about that, you know, when they are suggesting using your credit card. Now the other thing I would say is, even when it comes to your credit card terms, let's say that actually it's interest free for 12 months, you also need to be thinking as well, am I realistically going to be paying that back within the 12 months? Because what you will find is that a lot of people will find that they have something that's interest free and that they don't need to pay it for a few months, and then they will basically leave it and then leave it and then continue to leave it until you get to the last month, or maybe you get to the 11th month and you realize that you actually need to pay up all this money. And the big reason for that is because you no longer have the urgency because it's interest free for a particular time. So then you basically end up procrastinating and you just let it slide until you get to the last point where you realize you now have a large amount of money that you essentially need to pay back. Now if you currently don't have an emergency fund, it's something I would definitely recommend. So definitely check out my video where I talk about how you can actually save up and build your emergency fund. I will of course link that up here for you and in the description below. And if you're liking this video so far, then feel free to give me a thumbs up, as it really does help to support the channel. Plus I'm sure you know it's free. So the next money myth that I wanted to talk about is the fact that people say that investing in the stock market is risky. Now for me, yes, investing in the stock market does have an element of risk, and investing in general does have an element of risk, and probably things in your whole life is going to have an element of risk. But I don't think that should stop people from actually learning about how they can start start investing, particularly in the stock market, because I think it's one of the easiest ways to really get started in investing, but really just taking the time to actually educate yourself so that you can mitigate as much risk as you can, even if you don't mitigate all of the risk basically. Now, particularly when it comes to the stock market, there are going to be certain things that you invest in which are going to be a bit more risky compared to others, and with that, the level of returns you get may also have been impacted by the amount of risk that you're taking. So there are going to be certain things where you may decide actually that if you don't want to take a lot of risk, then you may be investing in something that's maybe a bit less risky compared to someone that maybe has a high risk tolerance, and then they're more likely to maybe invest in other things that potentially could be more risky. So the one thing I would be saying is you really want to understand first your own attitude to risk. So you first want to find out, you know, what are you comfortable with? And then when it comes to the money that you're actually using to invest, are you basically chucking in all of your life savings when it comes to your investments, or are you actually just investing a proportion of your income which you can then allow to actually grow over time? And so even if there are some short-term swings, because usually if you do invest in things like the stock market, there will be these short-term swings, what you really want to be thinking about is, with the money that I currently have that I want to invest in, is that something that I can basically invest it for the long term? And even if it does go through some short-term swings, that doesn't matter because I'm not going to need that money anytime soon. Now, I know a lot of people will still argue that, you know, investing is risky and the fact that you could potentially lose money and all of that stuff, but at the moment I would really challenge you to think about the money that you're probably losing every day, even number one, to inflation, because inflation is happening right now and it's happening quite a lot these days, but also number two, when you're actually going to buy experiences, like maybe you're going out to a restaurant, that money has basically gone whether you like that food or not. So that money has disappeared. The same thing when it comes to actually buying takeaways. Yes, you'll be able to actually enjoy the food whilst you eat it, but whilst you've had that food, that is basically finished. It is gone. That money has basically been spent. So really you want to think about, you know, the money that you're actually spending on these things that probably aren't lasting long, like buying takeaways or maybe buying clothes and things like that. Could the portion of that money be used to actually make that money work for you through investment, so that even though potentially if your investments go down in a certain point of time, you at least know that you're making your money work for you, rather than it just sitting in a bank account or spending it on things that you don't actually need because you have no other purpose when it comes to your money. Now, again, I'm not telling you to go and chuck all of your life savings into the stock market, because again, there is still going to be an element of risk, but what you really want to be doing is actually educating yourself and also thinking about your main goals as well, particularly when it comes to your financial goals and things like actually becoming financially independent in the future. Now, this is something that I outlined in my free financial independence guide, so it's really giving you the steps to start thinking about how you can actually manage your money better, but then also how you can start thinking about investing your money as well. So definitely check out my free guide if you haven't already. I will of course link that up here for you and in the description below. So the next myth that I want to talk about is when people say that they don't actually need a budget, or that budgeting is too boring for them so they don't end up doing it in the first place. Now, for me personally, you guys already know how I feel about budgeting. I mean, I have my own budgeting template, for goodness sake, when it comes to either a monthly budget or a weekly budget, and so you guys will probably know how passionate I am when it comes to budgeting. Again, you can definitely check out my templates in the description below. But when I hear things like this, guys, unless you have a very high net worth, or maybe you're financially independent, or you've retired already, or you've already built wealth, for me, you probably will need some form of budget or spending plan. I'm not even going to lie to you. Now, the reason why I say this is because if you don't actually know what your money is doing, and you're not even telling your money where to go, then your money is going to end up just doing whatever it wants. And so when it comes to actually building wealth and actually having savings and investments, it's not really going to happen because you have no control on your own personal finances. Now, I really don't care what kind of budget you have, because everyone is going to have their different preferences, but what I would say is you want to have at least something so that you can understand what money is coming in and also what money is going out as well. Now, this is something that I really try to deep dive with my coaching clients as well, because when it comes to budgeting, even though you might know all of these different budgeting methods, like maybe there's the zero-based budget method, there's the cash envelope system, there's all of that stuff, if you haven't actually understood your mindset around budgeting and your beliefs around budgeting, and having that mindset shift and understanding that your budget is really supposed to just be a spending plan, if you've not actually worked on that, then most likely you will probably continue to think that your budget is too restricted and that you can't actually stick to your budget, and that you end up overspending because you have not actually worked on your mindset first before actually then thinking about the strategies that you can use to basically build a budget that's perfect for you. Now, again, this is something that I definitely talk about in my free financial independence guide, in terms of how you can actually start controlling your money and thinking about how you can make your budget work for you. So definitely make sure you do check that out. But what I would stress is you almost want to actually have that mindset shift, because a lot of people will say that budgeting is boring, but a big reason for that is because they have not actually figured out what budget is going to work best for them based on their own attitude and based on their own mindset and behaviors. So for me personally, my budget is not there to just restrict me and tell me that I need to essentially live cheap. My budget is there for me to basically tell my money what I want it to do for the month and basically have that spending plan so that I can understand what am I going to be prioritizing this month, and then I can keep going back to my financial goals and making sure that I'm actually still making progress towards the financial goals that I would have set myself. So always remember, at least from my personal perspective, a budget is not there to be restricting. A budget is basically for you to tell your money what to do and where to go. And then the next myth I want to talk about is when you hear a lot of the gurus basically saying that saving money is for losers. Now for me, I do know why people will say this, because basically saving money is only going to take you so far. When it comes to actually building wealth, you do really need to think about investing. However, the one thing I would say is that does not mean that you should not be building the habits and learning how to actually save money properly. Because let me tell you, if I did not actually build the foundation to be able to start saving money in the first place, there is no way I would have been able to pay off my debt in 18 months. Plus, there is no way I would have even been able to start investing, because the reason why I started investing is because I built the habit of automatically actually saving my money and paying myself first every single month so that I could basically reach my financial goals. And again, it's important to remember that you're probably not going to be investing all of your life savings. There are going to be particular things that you actually want to save for, and that will probably be better off actually in cash and in the bank account compared to things that you will probably want to invest for, particularly when you're thinking about your long-term goals. So really understanding the difference is going to be important, and I don't think we should just be saying that saving is for losers, because again, when it comes to saving money, it can really help you to build a solid foundation, particularly when it comes to actually controlling your finances, so that you can end up actually growing and accelerating your money once you've actually taken control of it first. Now, I do actually have a video where I talk about things that maybe you should start thinking when it comes to saving your money versus investing your money. So definitely check out that video if you haven't already. I will of course link that up here for you and in the description below. But all in all, I would definitely be saying that we should not be bashing people for actually saving money, but what we should really be thinking about is actually, now that you've built the foundation of being able to save your money, let's start thinking how you can actually grow that money and make your money work for you. And that's when you start to think about things like investing. So if you did like this video, then please do give me a thumbs up, as it really does help to support the channel. And once again, thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. If you have, the fact that I now have 5,000 people following me is absolutely crazy, and I really hope we continue this relationship in the future too. I do post every Tuesday and Friday, so if you would like to know more, then of course you can subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys on Tuesday.